have met is happy to get rid of the rare bad cop that goes over the line. Just like our politicians, no one should be able to shield themselves from the law. And the camera is the best weapon we have to protect those telling the truth. No matter what side they're on, it's what helped freed people in the South in the 1960s, the camera. Meanwhile, Apple and Google recently got a scolding from somebody else in Congress, a key Senate committee leader, falling into or started yelling at these guys because they didn't accept an invitation to testify at a Commerce subcommittee updating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, I'm not comfortable with everything that Google is doing. I think something's wrong with Google, quite honestly. I'm no fan of providers collecting personal information from children under 13, but I am even more uncomfortable with the ever-expanding government interference into absolutely everything. Listen to this amazing statement from Senate Commerce Chair Jay Rockefeller.
When people don't show up when we ask, I have this power of a subpoena, which I would absolutely love to use. I have not to this point. But what all it does, it increases our interest in what they're doing and why they didn't show up. So they made a stupid mistake by not showing up today, and I say shame on them.
Oh, yes. I don't like it when they don't show up. We ask them, and then they don't. I wonder what they are doing, yeah? Do you have ways of making them talk, Senator? Yeah. The media goes nuts when I ever play actual words from elected officials who make outrageous statements. We draw conclusions from those words. That's what thinking human beings should do. But I don't have any power. I don't have the power to subpoena anybody. None. No power. On the other hand, the media has no problems with congressmen attacking students for simply asking questions, or Senate hearings where Jay Rockefeller insinuates that Google and Apple didn't show up to a hearing because maybe there's something more nefarious going on that we should look into, and then threatens them with subpoenas and more intense scrutiny. That seems to be fine with the rest of the media. They don't seem to understand that it is the power of subpoena, forcing people to appear and testify, and that the power to act on what comes from that hearing, that is the dangerous power. That is what Joseph McCarthy was doing. If I get out of control and start leveling baseless charges that can't be backed up, guess what happens? I'm fired. I lose my job. If Congress does the same thing, you lose your freedom. Maybe that's what the press should focus on, I want to show you something. Everything in life decays. Everything. From the Garden of Eden, what was introduced? Decay. Our bodies decay. Everything decays. And when you die, if you believe in the resurrection, you are restored. Everything is restored, and you get the perfect body. Can't wait for that one. Restoration is the key to everything. Restoration. Because our truth has been in decay. Because it comes into our house, or into our head. We write it down in books that are edited and changed. We're going to spend a lot of time on man's freedom. This is a flag from July 4th, 1864. You can barely see it here, but it was signed by Abraham Lincoln. Only flag in existence known. It's worth about $2 million. And the stars say free. Freedom. I wanted to show you this flag. Today, or this weekend, I read some Abraham Lincoln, and I found a great quote from him. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. There's a lot of people now that don't want to be slaves, but they're willing to be a master. I want to show you this. This is the debt clock. all of the spending that is going on now in our country. Here's our national debt. Here's the debt per citizen. Debt per taxpayer is $118,000. Federal budget deficit, U.S. federal spending. Bring the unfunded liabilities. This is a great one. Here it is, $109 trillion. The liability per citizen is $352,588. I'd like to see the calculation on what it is per taxpayer. Now, $109 trillion. Do you see all of these zeros? You know what those are? Those are links in a chain. It is slavery. It is slavery for you and slavery for our children. Your kids are being enslaved. We're enslaving our grandchildren. How do we pay this debt off? Who is the last bank of last resort for America? Most people would say it's China. It's not. It's not. It's you. By inflation, they are taking this money right out of your bank account. They're happening it, and here's the evidence. 1990, you could buy a Ford Taurus for $10,000. That same Ford Taurus today will cost you $20,000. What does that mean? They've cut your money in half. The government's policies have reached into your bank account and taken, if you had $10,000, you now have $5,000. It's an outrage. This is slavery. It is the road to serfdom. This country needs to restore its history, restore its sanity. We need to understand freedom and slavery. And then we need to find a few people that will stand up and actually live it and pass it on. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. on August 28th, restoring honor. This is not a political event. This is about restoring history. It is really going to be an amazing event. Amazing event. I ask you if you will bring your family and come here to the feet of Abraham Lincoln. You will see and meet people that your children need to see, that you need to see. You will learn history that you need to see and witness, and we need to stand next to each other and once again mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, so our children and grandchildren can someday be free. You know, there are authors right now that seem like prophets. Ayn Rand, George Orwell, 1984. I'm reading this now, the first book by Vince Flynn, Term Limits. It is frightening. He's going to be with us tomorrow. Also, we're going to talk to people at Ayn Rand. And tomorrow my book comes out. It's a thriller. It's the first one. I wrote this called The Overton Window to get people to look at history, to think outside the box, put facts together, engage as citizens. You know, we battled this stuff before, but it was somebody in the 1950s that said almost the exact same thing. I want you to see it now.
I would like to say this: confidence by itself without effort does not win contests. Victory in this conflict depends on much, much more than confidence. It is a contest unlike any we have ever faced in our history as a nation. A snake of a whisper is abroad that Americans have lost touch with their past. Is it true? It can't be, if we are to survive and win. The Overton Window, a thriller by Glenn Beck.
All this summer, we are going to restore as much history as we possibly can. This week, we're going to work on the labor union. The labor movement, if it wasn't for them, the big evil business would destroy all of our lives. We've heard that myth before. You may have been taught it in school. This week, the real history of the labor unions, including their racist roots. We will set the record straight this week from New York. Good night, America.